Hi, I'm Rick Biella, the artistic director for the San Antonio Chamber Choir, and we're pleased to have again with us Jake Runstead and Todd Boss. And they are going to be with us on the first weekend of May for the musical world of Jake Runstead. And we are most pleased to present several, what I would consider major works of Jake's and Todd's, not the least of which is a work that I heard first in 2019 ACDA convention, and myself and probably 2,000 other directors immediately stood to recognize the genius of this work and the power of the text and everything together in making that a most prominent work in Jake's powerful unit of music. But well, could you read us our Silence Haunts Me?
A silence haunts me. Hear me, brothers. I've a confession painful to make. 6 years I have endured a curse that deepens every day. They say that soon I'll cease to hear the very music of my soul. What ought to be the sense most perfect in me fails me, shames me, taunts me. A silence haunts me. They ask me, do you hear the shepherd singing far off soft? They ask me, do you hear a distant fluting, dancing joyously aloft? No, I think so. No, I think so. No. God, am I Prometheus, exiled in chains for gifting humankind my fire? Take my feeling, take my sight, take my wings mid-flight, but let me hear the searing roar of air before I score the ground. Why? Silence is God's reply, and so I beg me take my life. When lo, I hear a grace and feel a ringing in me after all. So now as leaves of autumn fall, I make my mark and sign my name and turn again to touch my flame of music to the world, a broken man, as best I can. As ever, yours faithfully, a bell, a bell. Hear me and be well.
So when I conceived of this piece, first I was in the music museum in Vienna back in 2017 or something like that, and I saw this letter, a copy of this letter, and after reading it, knew, wow, that would be an amazing piece to write someday. And I knew that I wanted to utilize some of Beethoven's music and thread it throughout the piece. So when I got this commission from ACDA for the Brock Commission, um, I this piece came back to me as a possibility. So I started doing more and more research on Beethoven and listening, of course, to his music and revisiting a lot of pieces. And and also when I read that about a year before he wrote the letter, he finished his ballet Creatures of Prometheus. And knowing that story and knowing that when an artist is tackling a story like this, they're attempting to place themselves into that character. And so was Beethoven thinking of himself like Prometheus, where he's gifted humanity this beautiful gift of his music, but he was punished by the gods with his deafness. And so I presented this all to Todd, and we were both kind of giddy about it. We knew that this was something going to be really special. Um, so as far as that middle section about Prometheus, and wanting to use Beethoven's music, I took the fugue from a funeral march in the Third Symphony, and it just happened that the words fit perfectly. Like we didn't really plan it that way, but it
Wow.
just worked out. And so it was pretty special that all came together. Right. We go through these different stages. So because the text comes first, so initially we have the idea, or I have the idea and bring it to Todd, and then we both kind of hash through it and throw around possibilities for what it might be, what direction it might go, themes, arcs, things like that. And then Todd goes to work and works through all of the aspects of the emotional world of the details of it, and really has this deep, profound experience, and then gives it to me. And I haven't yet had that, where I've gone through that, just the arduous process of doing the work, and so then once I take those words and then begin my creative process and then grapple with the complexity of it, then I have my turn. And then I say to Todd, like, oh my God. Like, and then he's like, I know, right? Yeah. So it's like this weird distance between our own emotional creative experiences with the piece until the premiere, when we can then both experience it, because it hasn't lived, right? Like I can play through it on the piano for him or sing through it, but it's not the same as hearing it performed live by the choir, the finished
No.
product. So both of us don't experience it in the same way until we hear it, at the premiere or at the first rehearsal. And so it's a really fascinating experience to know that, yeah, Todd has something and then I have something, and then we both don't. It's this weird, it doesn't exist, right? Until we finally hear it come to life in the voices.
Yeah.
So when conceiving of a piece, I'm not just thinking about sound, but I'm thinking about what's the experience of that piece, being an audience member sitting in a space and having this piece, essentially come through the air to you, but also the visual aspect. And then what is it like to sing it as a performer and share that piece in that space with an audience? And so with that comes all of the parameters that are necessary to think about in that capacity. But knowing that unison voices is a really powerful tool as a composer to use. And I love using it. I think there are many moments where it's just exactly what we need. And so in this moment where the choir essentially it's like a recitative or a dramatic monologue where they're just saying these words, why, why? Silence is God's reply. And I wanted it to be simple. It didn't need harmony. It didn't need accompaniment. It's just the voices in kind of a sung spoken mixture. But also I have very specific directions in the score about how to achieve a sound. So I don't want it to feel full voiced, but I want the voice to tremble and to feel uncertain, to feel almost defeated, to feel desperate, all in that moment. And that's what Todd wrote into the poem. It's all in there. So it's a matter of me pulling out the music from the poem or from the text. It really was a, a study in drama for choir. How do we make a choir be dramatic? How do we bring in a little bit more of the theater into choral music? That's really what
Absolutely.
this piece is about. And so I find that, I think because choral music largely stems, at least our tradition in the US, stems out of a church tradition. So it's a little bit more staid and conservative, but choral music is in a different place now, where it's concert music, not only, but largely that's what's happening in the US. And so it's now on par with theater and with opera and orchestral music. And so we can utilize drama. We can utilize these other aspects instead of just kind of a staid in the background art form. And so I'm really interested in how we can bring that to our works. And so A Silence Haunts Me was kind of really our first major study in that concept.